18-year-old Emily Ritson was slightly late back to her car after she'd been to a pop concert in Birmingham. In fact, 9 minutes after her parking ticket had run out. But when she got there, her car was gone, and that meant she was stranded late at night in a strange city, 80 miles from home.
You must have just felt terrible. You're in a strange city, a long way from home. What was going through your mind?
What was I going to do? The car had been stolen. I didn't know what to say to my dad. That's mostly that I was scared of the most. I had to tell him the car had been stolen.
She rang me in tears, absolutely distraught. Didn't know what she was going to do, just completely beside herself. So I told her to ring 999 and report the car's been stolen.
But Emily had not been a victim of crime. In fact, her car had been towed away by a company called Midway Parks. They wanted her to pay £150 in clamping charges, plus £200 for towing the car away, plus £40 for overnight storage. £390 in total.
I actually spoke to Midway Parks and explained to them over the phone that she was only 18 years old, she was in a city 80 miles from home, and she had £10 in her pocket. Would they give her the car back now? I'd pay it there and then with the credit card. Absolutely no way. They said she'd have to get the car tomorrow morning. I said to them, well, what should she do? Just walk the streets of Birmingham, go and sleep in a bus stop? He said, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not going to continue this conversation. And he hung up on me.
Now, they would say that what they're doing is legal and they're just protecting landowners' rights, and it's a legal thing to do. What would you call it?
Extortion and blackmail, basically, is what I would call it. It's just a licence to print money.
Midway Park's acceptance of cash only is shared by many clamping and towing companies. They know that credit and debit cards can be cancelled later.
I think in this case it would appear that the car probably was not clamped, and we're seeing more and more of this, that the clampers claim a clamping fee, but basically they know that they can get more money if they tow it away. It's almost impossible to clamp a car, take the clamp off, put it on the tow truck and get out of the car park in 9 minutes. AA patrols couldn't do it in that time, and I'm sure clampers couldn't.
Emily Ritson isn't the only driver who has felt unfairly targeted by Midway Parks. Birmingham Council and Trading Standards have been aware of incidents like these for some time.
We've been aware of Midway for quite a while, as they've upset many members of the public with their aggressive attitude towards people whose cars they've towed away. They have behaved so badly over several years now, and they have grown into quite a size, and they're getting away with it almost with impunity.
In May, Lynn Linley's car was parked outside a garage for 45 minutes in a familiar parking spot while the family picked up a takeaway. The family's initial thought was that the car had been stolen.
It's the heartache it caused all of us and the anxiety of not knowing. We didn't know till something like 2 o'clock in the morning, so from 10 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning, we still thought our car had been stolen.
Lynn also had to cough up £390.
What was going through your mind when you finally found out that the car hadn't been stolen?
Well, we just wanted to get it back. We were in complete despair of not knowing where it was, to then sort of elation to know that we were actually going to get it and that it hadn't been smashed up, it hadn't been damaged. So it was a case of we would pay anything just to get our car back.
The whole issue is unacceptable, the way they demand the money, and you don't get your car back unless you pay. And believe me, as every day goes by, the price goes up, you see, so that's putting more pressure on people to pay up now and forget it. And people end up, despite how angry they are, just paying and going.
Also this May, Adrian Bailey had a run-in with Midway Parks. His pay and display ticket ran out at 1:36 p.m. The towers didn't hang around.
They were particularly speedy, weren't they? They got an awful lot done in a short space of time.
Well, apparently they'd managed to clamp the car and take the clamp off and get it on the back of the tow truck in 3 minutes.
And in those 3 minutes, the clampers earned £150 for clamping and £200 for towing. Midway said that there is not a minimum time that must elapse between a vehicle being immobilised and its subsequent recovery.
Now, you tried to complain, didn't you? Did you get very far with that?
Well, I spoke to the police and they weren't interested. And I spoke to the owner of Midway and he said, well, even if you make a complaint and the court's found in my favour, he still wouldn't pay me back.
Many people are dissuaded from taking these companies to court because they're quite frightening. And also, if people have taken them to court, they've just refused to pay anyway.
So how did you get your car back in the end?
Well, I thought that was unacceptable because you're not even allowed to see your car before you pay. I had to stand outside the outer gate of the pound, pass my money through the gate, and then I was allowed in, and then through an inner gate to see my car.
It's all a bit cloak and dagger, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, I don't really believe that that's a legal way of operating.
But it is legal. With no compulsory code of conduct, the company has broken no laws. And if the experience of Birmingham City Council is anything to go by, the Security Industry Authority's regulation of the industry isn't working.
The white paper on the private security industry will compass to be licensed, and statutory regulations are codes of practice.
Because the law around actually clamping a car and taking it away is pretty weak. And the government attempted to sort that out some years back with the SIA, but it's clearly failed, and we want improved laws now to allow us to properly regulate these people.
And the problem is, if the police are called, the clampers are then seen to be semi-official. They can say, well, I've got my SIA Home Office licence here, I'm regulated, it's okay. Well, it's not okay, because motorists are being ripped off left, right and centre.
When approached for a comment, the government pointed us towards the Security Industry Authority. They issue clampers with their licences and deal with any that breach the few conditions of that licence. But a number of people have told us that they have gone to the Security Industry Authority with these breaches and heard nothing back.
They were reported to you several months ago and neither have had any response from you. You're the people that should be helping them and you haven't.
We can't simply remove somebody's licence on the evidence of somebody and provided by a third party. We would have to investigate that and satisfy ourselves that there was a breach. And what I cannot say is when that intelligence report was received, what our compliance and enforcement priorities were.
No, but isn't it at least polite to issue them with a response?
As I mentioned, we get a huge number of intelligence reports. We got over 1,100 in June alone. We do not acknowledge every one of those because we simply haven't got the resources to do so.
Critics say that the lack of a code of conduct for licensed clampers doesn't help either.
Of course, the companies involved in all these complaints would they say that they're acting legally. What they're doing is fine, and in effect, it is, because there are no laws for them to break, are there?
I've mentioned already that there are laws for them to break. They have to be licensed, and they have to provide licensed operators, and they have to comply with the conditions of their licence. What we're going to look at with the industry is the possibility of introducing a tighter regulatory regime. The details of that we don't know yet, but there are some things that we believe we can do.
But after 3.5 years of managing vehicle immobilisers, don't you think that the situation should be much better than it is? Because many people believe that actually it's worse than it was before.
We have done a good job with the legislation available to us. The legislation has not worked as well as some might have expected. That's exactly why we've been asked by the Minister to look at the feasibility of extending the licensing framework in a way that would capture some of the incidents that you've just mentioned.